Bee Adamic, TEDx speaker, award-winning female powerhouse in the music industry. Bee is the co-founder and CEO of Liberty PR, a music PR agency that is dedicated to connecting artists, brand, and the audience, and founder of MAMI.
Like, I was literally like mapped out this whole thing, like, okay, if I want to get in the music industry, and I basically decided to open just as many doors as I could. What was lacking, what probably still is lacking, is just an agency that cares. There is so much pressure on musicians to survive, thrive, be the best. I know people that have been signed to major labels and had that taste of like what it's like to be at the top, and then very quickly dropped at the end of the year. People like RAYE, she managed to get out of her record deal after many years, so she wanted to be true to her roots. She wanted to be an R&B singer, and they were like, R&B singers in the UK just don't work, okay, so we want you to, going to push you down a more kind of dance vocalist route. And she was like, hell no. Scooped 9 awards at the Brit Awards. So it just goes to show that actually you don't need that. You can do what you want, do what's true to you.
Actually, I was listening to a podcast. It was Stephen Bartlett. He was once talking about, so if you start to really understand what your stack is, that actually becomes the key thing that people connect with you on and makes you so unique in what you do. Bee,
hello. I'm so proud to be here. I think it's been a while, hasn't it? So we've been trying to make this
I know,
happen.
And we are finally here, and you are blooming. So I'm looking at,
and I'm quite hot, so apologies if I look like I'm dying. I'm not dying.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this and not watching it, Bee is about 7 months pregnant.
7 months, yeah.
And it is June, and it is about 30 degrees today.
So
I'm so happy to have you here, Bee. We made it happen.
Yay! I'm very happy to be here.
And I want to kind of get stuck in because I've been wanting to have this conversation for a long time. I met you about 6 years ago when we opened in Brighton, when we opened our Soul Deli, our 4th location in Brighton. And you were kind of in those early years of Liberty PR. And we totally hit it off. And then I just watched you guys soar, and it's been such an amazing journey. So I'd like to start a little bit about finding out a little bit about Bee kind of growing up. Like, were you like a natural born entrepreneur going, I want to like start my own thing? How were you? What kind of really shaped you in those early years?
I think actually I was, if I'm completely honest, when I kind of look back at all the things I did when I was a kid, yes, I was a little bit of a hustler. I was the one that kind of went out there. I actually had my own little kind of company. It was called Bee's Bunch. And I roped in my brother, my cousins, this summer holidays, and we created these little flyers, and we'd go around to our neighbourhood. It was quite a nice neighbourhood, and offer our services. So it'd be like cleaning cars, weeding gardens, any little odd jobs basically. And I loved it. I loved that sense of like, kind of working hard and then having a reward at the end of it. And there were so many things I wanted when I was like at that age that my mum and dad used to say, well, you have to save up or maybe get a paper round or something. So they kind of installed that sense of if you want something so badly, you have to earn it, basically. I did. I was quite entrepreneurial from quite a young age, actually, but quite shy, quite a shy young girl who didn't come from a particularly privileged background. Like my parents, we grew up in a council house basically, but I wanted all the finer things in life. I remember thinking like, I want those really fancy Nike Air Max, and I want that, like, and I think when we were teenagers all going through a weird designer phase, and of course no one could afford it, I wanted all of that. So I just thought, well, I'm going to have to do it then. I'm going to have to go out there and get my own money. So at one point I had like 3 jobs whilst I was doing my A-levels or whilst I was at school. That was just how it was, and I really loved it. I just thrived being really busy and having a focus and having a goal. So absolutely, I think that whole kind of entrepreneurial spirit was always there.
Kind of started in those
it was
early,
always there. Yeah.
And kind of actually understanding if I want that, I need to earn X to go get it. So understanding that equation from a young age, I think, is so important.
Isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
And I try and install that in my daughter. My daughter's 7. You know, I'll talk about that later, but absolutely. I think, honestly, I truly believe if you want something really bad, if you work at it and don't give up, you'll get there. You know, you will get there, because a lot of people do end up quitting, because it's quite hard, isn't it?
It is hard. And I think, you know, realistically, it does also take time, and we'll kind of like unpick that a little bit in a second. Okay. So tell me, where did this kind of like connection with music, you know, that kind of got you onto the Liberty PR, you know, getting to that stage, where did that bit first happen, where you were like, I love music, you know, at some point you were like, okay, I think I can do something in music. How did that come about?
So that was quite unusual, actually, because when I left uni, I actually went quite into a conventional kind of career path. So I actually kind of fell into the charity sector, actually, and I was in the brand partnership world, working for the National Trust, and it was an amazing job. It was actually going to my first festival. So I was, you know, I kind of like in my 20s had various jobs, corporate roles, commuting in and out of London from Brighton. And I remember going to my first festival, and I think I was like mid-20s. It was in Brighton. It was a great escape. And I just remember going, I want to be in this industry. It's so cool. It's exciting. It's passionate, creative. It's everything I'm not doing in my life right now, you know? And I just thought, I need to get there. I need to get into that industry. It looks fun. And I remember at the time I was dating a guy for like a year or so, and he was like, it's probably a bit too late, you know, for a career change. I'd leave it. And I was like, that's it. I'm going for it.
Don't tell me no.
Exactly that. So so I was like, okay, what do I do? So I actually almost created like a big plan of action, like a strategy. Like I was literally like mapped out this whole thing. Like, okay, if I want to get in the music industry, how do I go from A to B to C? And I basically decided to open just as many doors as I could. So I started at the very bottom. I kind of got into, what was the first thing I did? Oh yeah, that's it. I had my own radio show. So I had a little internet radio show online that I used to record in my room. And that was just my way of getting in and kind of discovering new music and talking about new artists. So I did that. Then I had a blog. Then I had a night. Then I managed a stage at a festival. Then I managed a band, and it kind of just grew. I took every opportunity, basically. Still had my 9 to 5, my Monday to Friday job in the corporate world. I applied for tons of jobs, and loads of people were like, no, you don't have the experience. And that was hard, because I had some great experience. But
that's actually quite interesting as well, that for any of our listeners that are in that kind of stage where they're working somewhere and they're going, how do I go into something that I really love? And sometimes it's just a passion that you might not even, you know, you're not a singer or you play an instrument. So you're going, how do I get into the industry without saying, oh, my parents were this, or you don't have any link to link you into it, right? That to know that is available to you. You can cultivate it in your spare time. If you really, really want something,
it's so true.
You've got to actually make that commitment to yourself and then go, I'm ready to do what it takes to get that experience, so that I'm not in the place of zero. I have nothing.
That's it. And I think that applies to any passion. Like, and this is something I talked about in my TED talk. I think if you, and loads of people came up to me at the end saying, oh, you know, I really want to launch like a food business, or I want to be a chef, or I want to get into the arts or whatever. And I just say, try and just open as many doors, gain as many connections, go to events, network, say hello to people. And if you can afford it, like I did lots of kind of passion projects. So I didn't get paid for all the stuff that I did, but it didn't matter, because that was like a little side hustle, and I had my Monday to Friday job. But I just felt I needed that experience. You know, I needed to create those connections, and that's what I did, basically. And then what actually led me to the point of launching Liberty is I was managing a band at the time, Adam's band.
So Adam is
my co-founder, partner in love and life. And so we share lots of things. It can be quite stressful and also very pleasurable at the same time. And so I was managing his band. So he came into I was running a night in Brighton. He came in, asked for a gig, struck up a really good friendship. And then he was like, oh, we need a manager. Would you consider it? So I did. And then he had an EP. He asked, so we thought, right, we'll get PR agency behind this EP. We'll do it properly, get it promoted. Contacted an agency, worked with this agency to get the PR agency to get his EP promoted. They actually did a really bad job. They weren't particularly good. And then I just jumped in and helped. So I was like, well, actually, I have some connections in the music media. I know so-and-so at that blog and that music mag and that radio station, because I'd kind of collected those contacts as I was going along. And suddenly the results I created for him and his band were amazing. And then it was after that point, he was like, actually, you're really good at this. Would you consider doing music PR as a job? And I was, I don't know. And then another band got in touch and said, oh, I saw what you guys did for those guys. Could you do our next single? And that's it. It just grew. It was like a complete creative, serendipitous moment that just naturally happened. But the funny thing is, like maybe a year or two before that, I remember speaking to somebody in the music industry. And he said to me, you should be in music PR. You've got that kind of vibe. You're really good at connecting with people. I think that would be a really good path for you. And it didn't, honestly, I didn't go, right, that's what I'm going to do. It literally came to me naturally. And that's where literally Liberty Music PR was born. And the kind of name and the sort of, freedom and liberating artists, allowing them to do what they want to do and without being tied down to a label and things like that. So that's kind of our mission and our manifesto.
And with that mission and manifesto and Liberty PR, do you feel you're doing something in the industry that is not being done so much, or that there is a real gap there? Because you obviously, you went to someone to do the job and you were like, I could do it better myself.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. No, exactly. And I think...
What do you think is lacking or was lacking in the industry when it comes to the PR for
So I think
for artists?
What was lacking, and what probably still is lacking, is just an agency that cares, that truly cares. Because I felt I kind of was on the receiving end of an agency that obviously clearly had way bigger clients and too many clients or whatever, and I felt like we were very much at the bottom of the pile in terms of customer service dedication. So I was like, right, well, if we can create all these elements for an artist and his or her team, then we've got a winning formula here, because people just want to be heard. They want to be cared for. When we buy a service, we want to feel like actually you really care about us. We want to feel like you're going to get the results. You're actually really passionate about the project and the music. So these are all the elements that we put into our kind of service standards. Everyone, we feel like we're there, we're an extension of your team. We've got this, we've got you everywhere, step of the way. We'll handhold you from start to finish. If there's anything you don't like about what we're doing, we will make it right. Sometimes we don't always get it right. And everyone that works with us is actually a musician themselves. So most of our service team, publicists, radio pluggers, they know what it's like. They've experienced that kind of sensitivity around releasing music. Releasing music is really hard work. Like, I'm not a musician, but obviously I work with so many. It's like they've just birthed a baby.
Oh gosh, I can imagine.
And then they're putting it out into the world, and that's so scary for them. And they need to be able to trust somebody or a team to be able to sort of look after the project, get it out to all the ears and eyes of the right kind of people, and that's what we're there for, basically. So I think it's just the passion, hard work, because it's really hard work. Working with emerging artists, independent artists, is really difficult. So it's having those connections, it's being really personable, it's being very transparent, but we are kind of results driven. That's what we're here for.
And it seems like a core belief that you have, and why you've got your team that actually comes from the industry, is that you are completely kind of customer centric. So your client is like the heartbeat of what you do. So it's almost like you built it around the client, right? Which is so not the way that most of the industry works, I think, in the music industry.
I like that. No, thanks for making me realise that. You're right.
I think that's what really makes you guys really refreshing, because I've seen, I've seen kind of you guys grow. I mean, you've had some real pinch me moments.
Yeah.
Some amazing things that I've seen you do, get up to Brit Awards, artists that you've been with. But I think what you stay true to is that it is really about the artist, and then working out from that kind of center outwards, which is really, really beautiful. And I think, like you said, like for an artist, you've pretty much birthed your baby, right? That's your heart, your soul. And so you to kind of like pass that over, you want someone else to almost take that level of care and attention to it.
And so a lot of people just don't in the industry, and so but and
do you think that the music industry can be quite a harsh industry? Because like like what you kind of like, I don't know what you've seen, I mean from my perspective it's what you've seen on the telly, or when you see like programs where you'll see people critiqued for their music, and like you're out, you're in, and it feels like that kind of like is that true of the music industry? Is it quite
it's a tough industry. Like being a musician is tough. You've got to have a thick skin, and to work in the industry and to be like a publicist or a promoter, it's tough. It's really hard work. Glastonbury is happening right now. There are so many artists that kind of go there. They're not getting paid, so they're going to perform at Glastonbury. It's hard work. You've got to prepare yourself for the travel, for putting yourself up. So there's a kind of big expensive element to being in the music industry, I think, for a lot of people. The rewards can be pretty low. Like you can be, thugging it out, putting your track out, over and over and over, and just not feel like there's been much impact. But I always think that the people that stay in it for the right reasons, like don't come into the industry thinking I'm going to be the next Taylor Swift tomorrow, because I think those moments have probably gone now. Those big superstar moments. But there are lots of artists and bands that have a really nice sustainable income and a good career and can go through. In terms of the industry side, it's quite supportive, I'd say, because I am in quite a few kind of female music groups, and obviously we set up MAMI as well, which is the Mothers in Music group. But actually, we've just relaunched it today, funny enough. That was on the back burner for quite a while. So that's been resurrected, which feels really good.
In fact, tell us a little bit about MAMI.
Sure. So where it came from, where the idea came from, was actually 7 years ago. So I'd literally just had Etta, my daughter, and then I was invited to a Women in Music event in London. And up I went, and I think Etta was like 3 months old, and I dashed up there. And I felt quite alone. So I was at this brilliant music event with women in the music industry, and I was kind of like, oh, where are the kind of new mums? Like, how does everyone feel about motherhood in music? And lots of the people I was talking to in the room were like, oh, no, I don't think I'd have a baby. It would ruin my music career. And I just felt quite alone, quite isolated. And I just thought, oh, my God, there's a need here for this community. A community that supports new mothers in music, lets them know that actually you can have a really good career, still be a mother, right? So, and then I sort of relayed this to somebody in Brighton, and she was like, who'd literally just become a mother herself, and she was a musician, and she was like, yeah, it feels quite lonely, doesn't it? This space that we're in. We decided, let's launch MAMI. So that's what we did, basically. So we've pulled together a group in Brighton. It's called MAMI. We meet up, we have panel discussions, we have roundtables, we pull out sort of iconic women in music who are mothers, who've done some amazing things. Like we've got women who've taken their children on tour with them, like literally still breastfeeding child before they're about to go on stage in front of like, 100,000 people, which is amazing. We have sound engineers who travel with some of the biggest bands in the world, who go off for 6 weeks and leave their children at home with dad, but have made it work. And just hearing those empowering stories, I feel, has been so beneficial to the community. And now more and more groups have popped up. There's loads in London and Bristol, but we did feel like we were one of the very first. And now I think in music, mums are being really loud and proud about being pregnant or being mothers, like, looking at Rihanna and people like that. Like, they're like bold. Whereas actually it did feel like 8 years ago, it was quite like, oh, I can't tell, there was still a thing in the industry.
Still a bit of a stigma around it.
Yeah. People were getting dropped by their labels. Like, women who were announcing they were pregnant were getting dropped by like Universal and Sony because that was it. That was career over. It was like a career suicide. But now I feel like we've definitely come quite far as an industry. And I think there's a lot more support, which is amazing. That is what we wanted to do, basically. So we're getting together in a couple of weeks' time, and we're going to do like a really nice round table. It's going to be an empowering discussion, some coaching for new mothers. But
do you think that, how realistic do you think, I'm going to ask the question, like, to kind of like manage or even kind of be winning, right, at your music career? And I ask this as a bit of a devil's advocate, having 3 kids of my own and starting a business. I know what it takes.
Oh, yes.
But I want to ask you from your kind of experience that when you were about to have Etta, and that was kind of also when you're at the start of your business, how did you feel and how was it to navigate your dream going after that and going, I still want to be a mother?
Yeah.
Like, how?
It was really hard. I won't lie. Like, I felt torn between the 2 roles, the motherhood role and the entrepreneur CEO role, because I, had to actually put Etta into childcare, albeit it was with a really good friend. So she was a childminder, so she'd come over and have her for a few hours a day. So it allowed me to run over to Spaces, which is where I met you, to kind of focus on Liberty. But it was hard. I felt like half my heart was at home, like broken.
Yeah.
And then when I was at work, I felt like a bit of a cop out because I was leaving early to kind of go back home. So I felt like I wasn't doing either role particularly effectively, if I'm honest. But I did also feel a sense of independence and like, I don't know, excitement as well, because we were starting something new, and I knew like setting up Liberty was the best thing that had ever happened to me, and it did just happen all at the same time. So just to kind of allow the viewers and listeners to hear, understand. So I basically quit my corporate job and decided I was going to set up Liberty. So that was quite a hard decision to make. So I was like, once I'd got quite a few little clients under my belt, I was actually still working my normal job. So I was side hustling at the weekends and evenings. I was literally working all day, every day.
Gosh.
Crazy. And then I thought, I've got to make the leap. And it was actually Adam that said, like, you can do this. Just do it. Let's like, we'll put some money aside. We'll put enough aside for 6 months mortgage. So we've got backup, but let's just go for Liberty. Look, I'll do the sales, you do the service, and we've got it. And then, so when I was working my notice at my corporate job, I literally, the day I left, I found out I was pregnant. Literally, I went into the toilets and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have to do a pregnancy test. I don't feel right.
Oh, gosh.
Periods late, and literally found out I was pregnant. So
that moment when you looked at it, you're like, right now?
I know.
Right now.
And I was like, I've just left a really nice maternity package job.
Oh, God.
And I'm now going to navigate 2016, pregnant and setting up a brand new business. And that was it. So it was crazy. But I was so determined as well. And there's points that, I kind of wish. There's little moments like I wasn't there for this. And obviously I was part of an NCT group, and all these mums on this group were like, oh, is anyone around today? I was never around to do these kind of meetups. Basically.
I know. Let's actually talk about that mummy guilt, right? Because that is
the mummy guilt is real.
It's a very real thing, the mummy guilt, which I wonder whether guys go through daddy guilt. I don't know whether as much, because I think historically and culturally, we're kind of coming out of that, but we're still kind of got a way to go. Yeah. But I think, it's, being that breadwinner thing where when the guy goes to work, he's not leaving the house going, oh my gosh, I really need to be at home, And even though, we're in a different generation, when you go out and do that and you're pursuing the business and what it takes, right? And at the same time, you've got, young kids, or you've just had a baby. That feeling, that torn feeling that you are straddling every day is really real. And I think it's so important to talk about it, because when you talk about it, And I remember if I hear someone else on a podcast or when I'm listening to something or someone saying it and I could relate to it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, they're my people. Because I could actually, because I couldn't relate to the other stuff because no one knew me at the playground. I wasn't the person that could do the really cute cards and hand make everything and bring it in. I'd love to have been that person.
I know,
but
right?
I was just frantically just trying to make sure that I just was juggling those plates and not letting anything drop. What kind of advice would you give to young mums now who are in that space where like, you know, because also your 30s, a lot of people, you know, like when you're in that stage of your 30s, so many things, which is a time that, you know, many people perhaps think about having kids, right? So when that happens, you are also at a stage where there's so much going on in your career, whether you're growing in your corporate job or whether you're going to start that business and that's now taking over, you are in this kind of like juxtaposition of being between two worlds. What advice do you think we could give like to mums to be, or anyone thinking I can't have a baby now and they're going, but I really need to have a baby now, like how do I do it?
No, I always think, look, go for it. Like we make it work, don't we? Like
absolutely.
I'm about to have a second now and I'm almost in my mid-40s, which is crazy. But you'll make it work. You'll be determined, you'll be focused. You'll feel crap. There'll be times where you feel majorly crap because you haven't, you know, you've forgotten to bake something or make something, or you can't make.
Or it's World Book Day and you forgot.
Exactly. You can't make the park catch up because, like, you know, you're working late, so your child's in the school club or whatever. But do what I think. Look, it passes. That feeling does pass. Now I'm like, you know, I don't have that feeling. It might come back, you know. But, you know, we can even go away now and not feel guilty, like have a few nights away, which is awesome. But no, I think don't be hard on yourself, but you probably will, because that's what we do as women, don't we? If it's something you're really striving for, then go for it. But if you're like, you know what, it doesn't feel right now, then don't feel that pressure as well. Like, women are like, you know, they were having kids in their 30s, now having kids in their 40s. So, and for example, I have an au pair and she's like, oh, my partner really wants a child. And I'm like, well, do you want that now? No, I don't. I was like, well, do it when you're ready. You've got plenty of time. Sometimes it's good to establish that career first. You know, get those roots set in. But if not, and you're like, yeah, why not? I'm like, you know, 31, I want to start. Go for it. That's fine. We make things work.
We do make things work.
We, you know, like you and I were saying before we recorded, society is a lot more relaxed now when it comes to newborn babies and children and bringing children into work. And
so true.
I think since the pandemic, I remember I was during the pandemic, I launched a podcast and I had Etta on my knee for most of my podcast guests, you know, because she was just around and everyone was chilled with it, you know.
Thank God.
I know
the world chilled out.
And I think that chilled shift has actually changed, has remained, and I think that's great, you know. And I think that when I do have the second, I think I will, you know, take her with me. We'll do things together. We come as a package, but there was also a time and a place for it to be separate. And that, you know, and I respect that as well.
I totally get that. And I think one of the things that helped me, and I think like just for anyone kind of in that space of going, you know, either they want to have a baby, they don't know whether they can manage both things, is that once you commit to the decision that you're like, okay, I'm having this baby and I'm making it my business work, you kind of also make the decision internally as well. Like, and sometimes on the days that it's a bit shit, you know, or you haven't slept, you kind of just go to yourself, okay, this is what I've signed up for. It's okay. You know, I don't have to be perfect every day. You know, and I used to think to myself, like, I'm going to turn up at the school gates looking really glamorous. I'd be like, why don't the moms like make an effort when they and like you're there literally in your PJs, you know, and you're going like, I mean, you just give up the whole thing of being wanting to be perfect at everything. Definitely. And you're just going, it's okay, today it didn't work out. It's fine, tomorrow's another day. Exactly. So I think kind of just letting yourself off the hook, that you don't have to be perfect at everything all the time. So no,
exactly. You know, if there's we had a cake bake sale at school for the summer fair, and everyone, you know, there's lots of stay-at-home mums, and I love that. I respect that. If that's what you want to do, that's amazing. And they were bringing in these amazing baked cakes, and I just said to my daughter, we're just going to go and buy some. We're going to buy some for Waitrose. Everyone's going to be happy. We're all good.
There's always Waitrose mums. Come on.
So you know what? It's like, don't beat yourself up, and don't just. But you probably will. We put so much pressure on ourselves. I say over and over again. But you'll come out the other side. Yeah. And you'll sigh with relief that you kind of made it through. And it was stressful when I had Etta, because I just felt like there was so much going on with the business, and there was bits I was just like, I didn't want to do this. I want to kind of dive into my inbox and reply to that client, and you know, but I couldn't because I had a baby that was crying, who had colic, and so I felt guilt for wanting to actually work as well. I actually enjoy working. I love working, you know. So yeah.
Okay, so obviously you started this platform, MAMI, and do you feel like that the industry is now changing with women, and also kind of like giving, you know, having that kind of feeling that it's okay for you to go on tour with your baby?
Definitely.
You know, and I think also it would be quite frowned upon for you to be, you know, if you were a record label and you got dropped, you know, there'll be probably repercussions to that now, whereas perhaps before people didn't speak about it. And I think that's why it's important that you do speak about it, because it allows people to go, oh, hang on a second, it's not okay for you to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, so one of the kind of MAMI kind of community members, her name's Alice Russell. She's a jazz singer. She's amazing. She played some huge stages. She took her 6-month-old on tour with her, basically, because the label had already planned the big tour around America, and the baby was being breastfed, so she couldn't not be with the baby. So she was actually breastfeeding literally minutes before she came out onto a big stage, and then had the label actually provided her with a roadie nanny, which was hilarious. And a team, you know, they actually put together a team for her so that the baby could be looked after, and they could be looked after. So I, you know, and I just don't think that would have been a thing years ago, basically. So we are changing. I think we're becoming more adaptive and accommodating of women, and that's what MAMI is also there for, because we also recognise, there was another woman within our community who actually decided to take her second child into work with her. So she literally used to come in with a car seat and put the baby on the car seat on the desk and just work. She worked for one of the biggest booking agents in the world in London, and she did that every day for 6 weeks or something. It's great. I don't know how she did it. And she takes her children to Glastonbury, so she works with massive artists, and she's on her way now, and she's got 3 children that all come with her, 2 to 6. You know,
and you know what? I think the beautiful thing about, you know, before in my corporate job, there wouldn't be, I would never think about even suggesting bringing my kids in.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
But when you are growing up around a parent who is an entrepreneur, to be involved, even in discussions going on, you actually understand as they get older the amount of things that they pick up, the acumen, the understanding of how things work. You know, it doesn't just turn up. And they have this. I mean, I do actually think that it gives you so many life lessons growing up in that environment, and the whole concept of actually before it was very much like you're at work. And now
it's quite separate.
Yeah, it's all very separate. Yeah. And I feel like we're getting to this, and people will say it's got pros and cons, which I'm sure it has. But I think the whole thing of being able to do what you love with the people that you love is actually it's a real beautiful thing to have. It's a real blessing. And you're wow.
And we're allowed to have that. I think, you're right. I think work, certainly I don't know whether it's changed in the corporate world. I hope it has. But I wanted to create an environment and a lifestyle for me that was very accepting of me being a mother. And I really want to see my daughter to see me sort of, you know, as this iconic, influential character. She came to see me on my TED Talk, and she really respects what I do, and I want her to see strong women surround her so that she hopefully feels inspired when she gets older to do something herself. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we've changed. It's a beautiful thing.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about in the music industry.
Yeah.
Obviously dealing with rejections and also, being open to critique. How do you think, in terms of your mental health in the music industry, how do you think it's something that needs to be looked at, or do you think it's something that, how do people manage that?
It's hard. It's really hard. Like, I feel sorry for artists, musicians that have to, you're kind of putting your neck on the line a bit. It's an industry where you're putting something out. It's, I suppose, in any creative kind of arts space, whether you're an actual painter, whether you're putting a play out, whatever, it's always open to critique and, other people's opinions and interpretation. We're not that particularly asking for it, but when the opinions and the critique is positive, it's amazing, right? And that's what we're there for as publicists. We're there to kind of get those great music journos behind a musician and an artist, and to get that great kind of content for them. But there are times when literally you'll get pieces back and they're sort of bashing the song, and you're like, oh my God, I can't share this with the artist. So mental health in the music industry is a very, very hot topic. There is so much pressure on musicians to survive, thrive, be the best, gain millions of streams. They obviously look
millions of followers,
social media presence. There's a big thing at kind of the major labels a couple of years ago where they were really pushing artists, young female artists, to be really good on TikTok. Not everyone wants to be on TikTok. Not everyone wants to be on Instagram. You just want to be a musician, right? You just want to put good songs out. You want to write good songs, but there's an expectation that you have to do a bit of everything. You have to be great at your socials. You have to be great at touring. You have to have a great stage presence. But you might actually just be a good music writer and like really good at recording the song. So I think there's so much pressure. Certainly mental health in music is it's rife. I think there's so much there's a lot of negativity. It's a really difficult industry to be in. I know people that have been signed to major labels and had that taste of like what it's like to be at the top, and then were very quickly dropped at the end of the year, because they didn't sell enough records. So getting and everyone thinks they want a record deal. That's what I think a lot of people join the industry thinking, yeah, I want to be
that's like the holy grail.
That's the holy grail, to be signed by one of the big majors. But what you don't realise is they're giving you a loan, and it's a very high interest loan. So they may give you a nice advance. They may kind of give you all that huge marketing support, but you're actually paying for that. That comes out of your record sales. It's not free. 9 times out of 10, you just don't reclaim. You're not able to recoup it back and pay them back. So they just get rid of you. That's it. And I think that getting rid of you bit is really hard.
Really harsh.
There's, we only need to look at people like RAYE, for example. So I was at the Brit Awards, was it Feb? Yeah, Feb.
She's amazing.
Who is amazing.
Absolutely
I love her so
amazing,
much.
yeah.
She managed to get out of her record deal after many, many years. So she wanted to be true to her roots. She wanted to be an R&B singer. And they were like, R&B singers in the UK just don't work, okay? So we want you to going to push you down a more kind of dance vocalist route. And she was like, I know.
To think that could have been, thank you, Ray, for not.
And she was like, hell no, I'm out of here. So she managed to break free from the label and went fully independent, and scooped 9 awards at the Brit Awards, beat people like Dua Lipa, who are on massive labels. So it just goes to show that actually you don't need that. You can do what you want, do what's true to you. Don't feel the pressures from other people. Don't worry about what anyone else is up to. Just do you. Stay in your lane. Focus on you. But I get it's hard. I do. And there's lots of mental health support in the industry. There's lots of really great communities and charities and things like that. But please don't feel the pressure. Don't look at, most of the overnight sensations, it took them years to get there. Ed Sheeran, he said that he was gigging 300 days a year. He went out with his guitar and went from like town to town to town busking. So he really hustled it, and he really thugged it out, and he really put the work in. So I think you've got to be in it for the long haul. It's not, you're not going to be an overnight success. So.
And I think now more than ever, having that authentic voice persona come out is what we all connect to.
Yes.
Like more than ever before, you could have a real polished kind of looking artist back in the day. But I think now that human element, I mean, if RAYE would have succumbed and gone down that route, even if she would have got some success, it would have been a flash in the pan. Whereas what she's creating is being her own artist.
Yeah, that's
what kind of advice would you give in terms of staying true? So when you are getting this advice coming from everywhere, what you need to do is this, what you need to wear is this, you need to go into this style because that's really like the thing right now. Yeah. How do you keep true to who you are?
That's so true. Look, you can be inspired because I'm inspired by people, and like, I'm inspired by loads of people. I'm inspired by you. I love what you're up to, and it kind of might make me go, right, I need to do more in the podcast world or whatever. It's okay to be inspired by people, but just do what is right for you. So if there's a certain style that you like to wear and certain lyrics that you like to write, a certain sound, and you're thinking, well, it's not really popular right now. You know what? We're accepting of all genres right now, aren't we? As an audience, we love different things. We love stuff we haven't heard before, fusions of sounds. So just go for what you think feels good. Don't copy. Don't think, well, okay, Taylor Swift's doing this, I need to do this. Oh, she's dressed like that, I need to be like that. Just, try and be authentic to you. And it is hard, but I just believe in you. And also, like you sort of mentioned earlier, we do as fans, we like to really get behind the artist, and we want to know everything, So we don't want to see the polished kind of glean of who, this persona. We want to know, why did you write that song? Tell us, what were you going through? Oh, you were going for a breakup. We want to know more. Take us, in behind the scenes of you as the musician. Where do you live? What are you doing? How do you get from A to B? What does your morning look like? We want to know all of that stuff. And the thing is, artists, they think that what we found with some of our musicians, when they put out really polished pieces, it doesn't get half as many views as if they've just DIY'd a piece on their phones, basically, and kind of...
Which is actually great that we, there is obviously the good and bad side of social media.
Yeah.
But I do think the fact that the individual is now kind of you're at the heart of the realness of who you are is a really powerful thing. And the whole thing on personal brand... It's really growing in every sector. In every sector, you developing who you are with your voice is the most powerful thing that you can do. And when you do that, what you realise is your actual superpower was never outside of yourself.
Yeah.
It was always you.
Exactly.
It was always you. And it sometimes takes you to go through a few roundabouts and going off on a few tangents to go... Oh, it was me that I needed to...
It's so true. And I've been there, and so many of my friends have been there. I've kind of tried to mold myself into certain shapes and styles and people, and actually that person or that persona is already taken, and you're unique. Yeah. So just try it for size and just be comfortable in your own skin and your own vibe. And it is hard, and I don't know whether it comes with age. I think for me, hitting my 40s, I think I just started to chill out about trying to be somebody I wasn't. And I think that maybe that just comes with, people being on a bit of a journey, basically.
Definitely. Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast. It was Stephen Bartlett. So do I.
God, he'd be my dream guest.
I know. Feel like he's the god of podcasts.
Oh yeah, he so is. Yeah.
So he was once talking about how we all have a stack, right? So everyone has a unique stack, right? So I don't know, you might be a doctor, but all the things that you've done, and the experiences you have are your stack that makes you very individual in what you do, even though your job might be what lots of people have got that job or another job or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
So if you start to really understand what your stack is, like I'm Angelee, the unique things that have made me and got me to where I am today, and then you focus on those, that actually becomes the key thing that people connect with you on and makes you so unique in what you do. You know, because everything we do has been done. Podcast has been done. You know, everything that you name it, it's been done. You know, even when I was setting up Soul Deli, my company that I had before Soul Studio, and when I was starting out, so many people were saying to me, yeah, but there's so many food places. And I was like,
I had that with the PR.
You know, and everything, there is so many of everything. There's 8 billion people in the world. You're not doing anything that is entirely unique. But your way of doing it is the uniqueness that you bring to it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point as well, because I remember that actually when I was setting up Liberty Music, a few people were like, there are so many music PR agencies out there. There were, and there is now. There's probably double or triple the amount of PR agencies. But that didn't matter, because I felt like I had a unique makeup of kind of like elements that I was going to bring to this agency. So anyone out there who's listening and thinking, I want to launch my own thing, and I've got this idea, but I want to be a florist or whatever, and there's a million florists or there's a million delivery services in this area, just think, maybe try and figure out your USP. I think that's the important thing, is what is it? And with your Soul Deli, oh my God, I still miss that. Like, there's some of the food that you created was amazing, and it was so comforting for back then. And yeah, you had your unique style. We all do. I think everyone has it. And I think maybe figure out what that is. You know, don't go and sort of do something identical to someone, because I think maybe, that's going to be tricky. But figure out what is your uniqueness. What's your sort of stack? I've never heard that.
No, I'll have to send you that podcast. But I thought that's a really interesting way for us to look at ourselves. That the sum of everything that we've done, experiences that we have, the way that we were brought up is only unique to us. We can't make a unique thing. I can't make a unique, it's the coffee shop will have the uniqueness through what I'm going to bring, the elements of me that I'm going to bring to it, So, you can go to a branding agency and they can make you a nice font or all those other elements. But the uniqueness that you bring is the actual secret sauce that you bring to it. And I think that is why even, in the entrepreneur world, that, having conviction in who you are and also, your presence in panels, in being vocal, these are so important in you positioning yourself in whatever industry that you're in.
Definitely.
It's so powerful. And I think the rise of kind of your personal brand not being a kind of ego thing, but actually going, hey, I've got experience in this, I've got things to share, I actually can be of value to people who are going through it, maybe perhaps in the beginning, and I've got really something to share on that. So I think it is a really powerful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of your challenges, what do you think your biggest challenge has been with setting up Liberty PR?
Yeah, I think it's been about getting the right team. I think that's been paramount to what we do. I think we're really good at knowing what works and what doesn't, and having that kind of, tried and tested kind of sort of elements of a team. And so I think that has been the biggest thing for me, the biggest learning for us.
What makes a good team?
Passionate individuals, hardworking, because you have got to be hardworking, personable, caring, an outside of the box thinker, supportive, because we're all in this together. I like people to come up with like suggestions, just because we've been doing this for 8 years, and I always say this to people when they start. I'm like, look, if you come into this agency and you're like, why are they doing that? Tell me. Because I want to know. I want to know what your ideas are. I want to know, like, how can we change? How can we innovate? And, and if it sounds like it's workable, we'll make it happen. We'll work together as a team to change that.
When you've made a choice on someone being in the team and you think, that wasn't the right choice.
That happened a lot as well.
How quickly are you at kind of resolving that?
Can take a while.
Yeah.
It can take a while. I mean, there's an etiquette and there's a process, and sometimes you just have to sit it out and wait for that natural kind of end, because it can be quite difficult legally as well. Obviously, that can be really tricky. Yeah, we've made mistakes as well. Don't get me wrong. We've had some bad people come and go. But I think we're very protective now about who we let in.
Yes.
And I think we've got some really good filters like recruitment filters in place that but again, we still get it wrong, at the moment we're looking for a director, so someone who can sort of take on some of the heavy lifting of the business, so Adam can go and do his tech thing and me have a bit of time out with the baby. And that's been a hard process, looking for somebody who can be our right-hand person, who we can trust, who we know is going to grow, drive growth, but also be conscious of costs and all of that kind of thing. I think we found someone. We're putting an offer in very soon. We're really excited. But we've got that role very wrong in the past. We've picked some people that just haven't been the right candidates, and that's been really hard. It
can be really tough.
Really hard. And trust as well. So when I started the business, it was just me and Adam. Now we're about 40.
Wow.
But everyone's kind of has other things going on, so it's like a nice big freelance flexible team. It's like, it works as a really lovely model actually. But it was trust. Like, I was managing all the PR campaigns. Adam was bringing the PR campaigns in, and I remember, like, I was about to have Etta. I took a PR call on the day she was born. I was literally, I'm not lying to you, I went into the hospital.
Were you in between your labour?
They were literally like, we're ready to induce you in about half an hour. And
you're like, can I just
need to talk to, and it's
you didn't be.
What am I doing? What am I doing? And it's like, and Adam said to me back then, we need to get you support. And I was like, no, I'll be fine. I'll have the baby and I'll manage all these campaigns. And it was a trust thing, knowing that somebody, and I think this is one thing that most founder-led businesses struggle with is actually handing over the baby to somebody else. Yeah, it's like you can go and have the holiday and leave your team to look after
there's
the
so
business.
many things to think about as well when you are in that position. It's quite a vulnerable position.
Definitely.
When you give that amount of trust in somebody. And also scope for them to do so much, and knowledge of so much. It also is a double-edged sword that, a lot of the times if you are having somebody who's that higher level, are they coming in for the right reasons? There is so much around, and you don't have a HR team, so you're making decisions yourself without a kind of like, somebody being a bit removed from it. So it really is tough. And I don't, I don't think we talk, I don't hear enough being spoken about in that whole recruitment process of how hard it is, because getting it wrong, like, it costs you not just money, but it also costs you peace of mind. Like, it's a lot to physically go through, because we talk a lot about mental health from an employee standpoint. I don't really hear a lot about mental health as a entrepreneur, because it's almost like you chose to do it, you get on with it, right? You show up. You're not allowed to have mental health issues, right?
I know,
it's
so
bad.
Like
that whole thing of having a call half an hour before you're about to be induced to have a baby, and it's like, no one's going to say, you're never going to say, look, I'm feeling stressed out about it, because you're like, I put myself there. But I have had moments of feeling like I was absolutely breaking. Like, I remember when COVID happened, we were our largest, we'd grown to 12 sites, 50 staff, we were in the middle of a £500,000 raise. We were a 7-figure company. So all the things looked great, but COVID hit as we were about to open our biggest site. And I literally, whilst everybody was like, in this weeks of kind of like, it was really hot summer, kind of like, oh, we've got like, furlough now sorted out and whatever. I was like, we may have just lost our business and I don't know. And I was just like, you know, that whole like anxiety, everything. And then I also had people ringing me up and texting me and going, you know, about pay, about what's going to happen. So much was like avalanching towards me, because you've also got now so many, you've got, you know, so many people working in your company that you are responsible for. It's kind of a bit like being a parent. You know, there's a lot of stuff going out.
Yeah, because you're like, you know, like Adam and I, we're like mum and pop of our shop, you know, and it's like, you know, people like look at us for like advice and info and direction, and it's a lot.
It's a lot. And I sometimes like, now I've like, you know, we had to restructure the company and start kind of pretty much again. You know, now I've actually kind of thought to myself, I never want to work like that again. I actually, you know, even though we're growing, kind of like my kind of mental health is really important to me, because when we did stop, I did feel like I was having a bit of a breakdown with the whole thing.
Right.
And I felt like all my value was so wrapped up in the business. Right. That the thought that it might not be there was terrifying me, and it almost needed to go for me to actually realize, okay, I haven't died, and now I've got a wealth of experience. I can start again, and I'm going to start it more efficiently and with a, you know, it's almost like building, but now you're building from a state of, I actually have experience, and now I'm building from where I was perhaps 7 years ago. But in that moment of being on ground zero, it felt like without this, I don't have any value. And I think for me, working out what my value is, like, for example, you working on MAMI and being involved in projects that are outside of yourself, that are making a difference, that leaves a legacy, is so important. Building your personal brand is so important, because when it's just you and your business and anything hits that, it's hit you personally. It's like you can't detach yourself from the other thing. So I do think kind of getting involved in the industry, the wider industry, is so important for beneficial. All entrepreneurs. If you are in business right now and you are in the daily grind of doing all the detailed stuff, you need to find a way to step out of that and work on the bigger stuff, so that you have like reach in other areas of the industry. I think that's so important.
Yeah, no, you're so right actually about that being wrapped up in the business. And it's like, that's so true, and that happens to so many people. I mean, I'm a victim of it as well, and it's like, once that rug is pulled from under your feet, and maybe you were in the situation you were during COVID, and you're like, what have I got? How am I going to get from, you know, through the day? You know, what am I working towards now? It's all just come like, it's really important actually to sort of carve out an identity and do other things, and not make work you. Because you aren't work. You were another person before. I was someone else before I started Liberty. I still am. Liberty isn't me. I'm a partner. I'm a mother. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I have other interests. So I think it's really good to break away as well and try and develop some of that outside of your business, your work.
Absolutely.
Otherwise it will
and I think kind of also understanding that in the industry, you know, you've got a lot to give as well. And I think if you can kind of also give yourself some time to do that, then you start to form something bigger than the daily thing of what you're doing. And I kind of often look back now and think I was probably the worst paid employee in my own business.
Oh God!
For the first 3 years,
classic,
you know, and we all have to go through that. There is, you know, as a baptism of fire. We all have to go through that. But the minute that you start employing people, you are employing them for a reason. And I also don't know whether, like, my leadership skills, you know, I'd very much dive in and start doing it. So to let go. And to go, I've got other people there to do that, so that I can go on to other things, was almost something that I had to learn myself. How were you like with like letting go of like a little bit of the reins of being so in the daily of a business and going into above and
you know
rising up?
I'm quite good at that. Adam isn't, so we're very different in that. I'm very, you know, I'm a bit too trusting. That's my problem. I feel like everyone needs an opportunity and a chance, and you know, what can they do to really mess it up? And I've definitely been burnt by that in the past. So I think I've taken it a little bit too far. But it's a learning curve. It's totally a learning curve, and, you know, leadership skills. And, you know, I always believe in hire people that are better than yourself, you know, people that are more experienced. Don't be worried about by that, you know, so like directors and things like that. If they know more than me, I see that as a blessing. I don't claim to know. I literally started this business just with Adam, and I thought it was just going to be the two of us. I didn't have this big vision with a big team and we're going to go global. And it just went that way. It organically grew that way. And as a result, I had to learn on the job, and you probably did the same too. So at times I felt like an imposter. I felt like I didn't feel like a true manager or boss. I'd never been a boss before. I'd always, like all my previous jobs, I'd kind of just sat, you know, as a consultant, I just sat in my own kind of area. So I suddenly having to like empower and educate and, you know, support people, lead. And I was like, I don't know this myself. But you know, you have to put on this persona and this front. So it's interesting.
It is
really
I think it's like the biggest curve of learning that you can have is to become an entrepreneur. It's like you learn it's everything at the same time. And I think the biggest journey that you go on is that you literally find out about yourself.
Yeah.
Because you are put in so many situations that you're like, I don't know. And then you're like working it out. And you're like, oh, that's what Ange does. Okay. So I didn't know what Angelee did in that situation. And you're just literally finding out almost like who you are. Who you are when it all goes up. Or, you know, a situation happens with somebody that you really trusted, or who you are. Like you actually start to find out, you know, what person turns up in you, which is actually really interesting. I think
that's so true. Like I hated public speaking, and then realized that as part of this kind of persona and this brand identity that I have in the music industry, you know, I need to kind of get out there, and I do need to create a profile, and I really want to kind of educate and support younger women in music who are starting out, who are thinking of getting into this industry. So I've put myself into loads of uncomfortable situations where I just would never have done, maybe if I hadn't started this thing. And
it's so important to do that, isn't it? It is so important to put yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I do actually think, like, I mean, this is true in corporate as it is in, you know, starting your business and wanting your company to grow, that if you can put yourself in a position of speaking about what you do, and actually, even if you're not confident, just get yourself out there, get yourself on panels, and position yourself as an industry leader. It does wonders for you. I mean, business comes to you. The amount of times I've spoken somewhere, you know, we won the Nike contract off the back of the fact that I was asked to come and speak at Henley Business School. I didn't know who was in the audience.
Oh, wow.
But it happened to be somebody from Nike, and they contacted me. So the amount of times that we've actually won amazing business off the back of the fact that I went and spoke somewhere, and I felt completely uncomfortable to go and speak. I was so nervous in the back. A lot of people sometimes go, oh, you know, like, tell us, like, I'm doing this talk, you sound and I'm like, you cannot tell me. I can't tell you how many times I've been so nervous. There was this one time that I was asked to do a talk, and this is when my corporate job, it was 12 people around a boardroom.
Right.
And I got up to speak, and all of a sudden I thought, oh shit, I can't speak.
Oh, no.
And I bent down to look for a pen in my bag. I had a pen, but I was just like, I need to just get myself in order because something had gone completely blank. So I think when it comes to things like that, it's not a talent per se. No. It can be taught. You can learn it. You can teach yourself, get over it. You could go get a coach. You could go and learn how to speak or whatever it is. Exactly. But I think anyone who thinks that you're either born with it or you're not. It's an absolute fallacy.
No way. No,
you can definitely learn it.
I still get nervous now. Like, trust, you know, I've done a TED talk. I stood in front of an audience.
How nervous did you get for your TED talk?
Oh my God. So minutes before, I was literally, I think I was just in this weird zone, like, I've got this, I can do this, I'm confident, it's my story, I'm telling my story, I'm not lying, there's no lies here, you know, I'm not trying to pitch to anyone. And I remember minutes before, suddenly, like, I was stood behind the sort of stage, and then the first person had gone in, and I was like, next. I suddenly looked around and everyone had cards I was like, I don't have a card. Because I just got it all here. Adam made me memorize it 200 times. He made me stand and tell my TED talk to him 200, bless him, because I think I needed to do that.
Yeah.
And I started panicking. I was like, oh my God, I don't have a cue card. I'm going to forget. And I remember like stepping out, and I just went into this alter ego. I was like, I don't know who I was, what I was, but it just rolled out.
I'm Bee Adamic.
Okay,
Yeah,
exactly. And this is my story. And it was crazy. And I remember afterwards,
was it the biggest high?
Biggest high. Honestly, it's like, I don't think there's anything that's quite topped that career wise now. But that said, I then did a panel the week later for like a small kind of music community women group, and I got just as nervous. You know, there was 20 people sat down. It was in a pub, young girls, and I was just as nervous. And I thought, you know what, I like this because I don't know if I want to be the confident speaker. You know, there's some people that just bang it out and they're like, they've got it, like, and I think people like the vulnerability. Yeah. I think they like
it's endearing.
It's endearing, and I think that I don't know if I want to be a big public speaker.
I think actually that goes back to what we said earlier on, which was, whatever you're going to do it your way.
Exactly.
You know, even the TED Talk and your presentation or you public speaking or the podcast, do it your way and you'll be fine. You know, you don't have to do it like X or come out with the razzle and dazzle if that's not you, right?
No, exactly.
That's the most beautiful thing that we have got right now, is that you can just come out completely as you.
Yeah,
that's fantastic advice, actually, for anyone who's about to do their TEDx talk or any talk.
Or any talk, honestly. It's like, just do you, and people love that slight differentiation in style and tone and sound and vibe, and honestly, like, you don't need to copy anyone else, really.
Absolutely. You do you. You do you. So, Bee, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, I could literally carry on talking to you.
Thank you.
So we have a closing tradition on the podcast, which is, if you could give your younger self and also our listeners the gift of hindsight, what would that be?
Okay, so for me, it would probably be, so if I did this, I actually wrote a letter to young Bee because it was part of like a sort of a thing that I was going through. It was to reassure her she was on the right track. You know, make the plans, which I did. You know, make it happen, but just don't worry about what anyone thinks of you. I think there's so much pressure, young boys and women, girls, they're so worried about what other people think of them, you know, and they're always trying to like please everyone else. Just don't worry about everyone else. Just you're actually doing all right, you know. And just keep going. Commitment, passion, dedication. You will get there. I promise you. You'll get to where you need to be. It won't happen immediately. Like, you know, I wanted kids a bit earlier. It didn't happen. I wanted my second earlier. It didn't happen. But we got there, you know. So just have faith in that journey. Life is a really interesting, beautiful, crazy, messy experience. So just let it, just have faith that you know, and manifest what you want. You have to have a goal. Always have a vision, a clear goal. I've written, I've done so many vision boards and things, and sometimes they just, none of the stuff's happened over that year, and you're like, oh well, this doesn't work then, does it? You know what? You've planted the seed. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, you know, maybe it'll come in a couple of years' time. Surrender. Once you get that vision, surrender to it. Yeah, that's it. Surrender, basically.
But I love that. I think that's great advice, because I do think when you look back, that whole, like, you're doing it all. When you look at it, you're like, gosh, I wasn't sitting on my ass. I was doing it all. But you're giving yourself a hard time while you're doing it. Like, it's not enough, right? And if you can get rid of that not enough bit. And the chatter of, you know, what you think you need to be doing. If you're doing it, you're doing it. And just give yourself a pat on the back for that.
Absolutely. So all those people that are out there and they're stressing and they're like, oh, I'm trying this. I'm
gigging, I'm turning up. Just keep doing it.
I'm trying to launch my business and I don't know what it should be or whatever. Because I had that as well. I remember thinking, I want to do my own thing, but I don't know what.
Don't know what it is.
I don't know what. You know, it was in my 20s, had no idea. Everything sort of clicks. It all fits into place eventually. Just let life and time do its thing.
The universe has your back.
It does. It does. Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Bee. We finally made it.
Yeah.
And also all the best.
Thank you.
With the new edition. I can't wait to come and see you in Brighton.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.